Imagine a seemingly quiet night in a family that suddenly turns into a nightmare when a shocking truth comes to light. Who would say that behind the affectionate smile of a mother would hide a meticulously planned trap? This is exactly what she discovered a husband as he caught his own mother drugging his wife within sleepy to steal the safe from the house. The order was clear and without appeal: arrange your things and disappear from here. You have 20 minutes. Good night, dear listeners. I am Andre Branco, and you are on the Maternal Secrets channel, where each story reveals the darkest side of family relationships. Today, I bring you an account that will leave you with your hair standing. Get ready for a plot of betrayal, greed, and relentless justice. Thais Borisovna Tukayeva has always considered himself a cunning woman. Widow for 3 years, she moved to her son's house, Roman, and her daughter-in-law, Svetlana, a 2-story house on the outskirts of the city. At first it seemed perfect. She helped with household chores, cooked, kept the order. But over time, the presence of Svetlana began to bother her deeply. After all, daughter-in-law was a manager in a large company, with a salary of about 10,000 hryaris a month, while Romano, a head of a small construction team, earned a little more. Together they had bought the house, furnished every corner with care and created a cozy home. But for Thais, only one detail mattered: Svetlana controlled the son's money as if it were his. What irritated her most was the safe in the couple's room, where Svetlana kept notes, documents, and jewelry. Thais had already hinted at more than once that it would be prudent to know where the important rolls were for any emergency. But Svetlana always responded with evasives. It was then that the mother-in-law decided to act in hiding. It started with small acts of espionage. I heard calls from the daughter-in-law, spying on mobile messages when the device was unprotected. Thus, he found that the couple had gathered almost 1 million hryaris to buy an apartment in the city center. Part of the money was in the bench, parts in the safe. The idea came up as lightning. Thais had worked as a nursing assistant at a hospital before retiring and knew the effects of various medications well. He kept with him a full of phenozepam, a powerful sedative he had used after his husband's death. For 2 weeks, she observed the habits of Svetlana. The daughter-in-law always had dinner at home and loved a sweet tea with cookies, the perfect opportunity to act without lifting suspicions. In the fateful night, Roman was late at work, overseeing the foundation of a work. Thais prepared dinner, made a strong tea and crushed half a pill of phenozepam in the daughter-in-law's cup. The drug was odorless and insipid. Svetlana arrived tired, ate fast and, in less than half an hour, already felt an unusual sleep. He attributed to the tiredness of the day and climbed to sleep. 15 minutes later, it was in deep sleep. Thais waited another hour, making sure the daughter-in-law does not even react to tall noises. So it went to action. The safe was electronic, but she had noticed that Svetlana always typed the same password. After a few days of discreet observation, he memorized the combination. Inside, he found exactly what he expected: packs of money tied with elastics, home documents, bank cards, and gold jewelry. Without exaggeration, he took only 3,000 hryaris, calculating that the amount would not be perceived anytime soon. He hid the money in his room, inside an old box between the underwear. The plan was simple: to remove small sums gradually and then get a pretext to move, claiming that I needed space. But the next day, Svetlana reviewed the safe. She was preparing to go to the bank to request a financing and knew exactly how much I had kept. The difference jumped to the eye. I didn't say anything to her husband, preferring to observe. The suspicions fell on the mother-in-law. After all, no one else had access to the house. Without evidence, however, there was nothing to do. It was then that Svetlana bought a camera hidden over the internet, a tiny device that fell behind a frame on the bedroom servant. Thais confidently repeated the dose a week later. Again, he waited Roman to go out for work, put the sedative at the daughter-in-law and waited. Svetlana, as the first time, fell asleep fast. The mother-in-law opened the safe, this time taking 2,000 hryaris. He felt safer, to the point of experiencing the daughter-in-law's gold earrings before the mirror. But the camera recorded everything. In the morning, Svetlana watched the recording and was horrified. It wasn't just a theft, it was a premeditated drug, a serious crime. He kept the video, made copies, and waited for her husband to arrive. I didn't want to confront the mother-in-law directly. She could make excuses or accuse Svetlana of forgery. Roman came home around 8 at night. Svetlana handed her the tablet in silence. He watched the recording with a darker face. The images showed her mother by turning the safe, telling the money, hiding notes in the pocket of the robe. The moment she tried the jewelry of others was the drop of water. "Mother," called Romano, with a fury contained in his voice. Thais descended from his room, without suspecting anything. Seeing the closed expressions of his son and daughter-in-law, he thought it was another fight between the two. "What happened?" he asked, pretending to worry. Roman only turned the tablet toward her. Thais looked and paled. There she was, curved over the open safe. "It's not what you're thinking," he tried to justify himself. "I just wanted to check if everything was in order, and Svetlana slept so deeply." "You gave my wife sleepy," Romano cut down, but with a sharp firmness. "And stole our money. What a nominee. What absurd is this?" Thais tried to make himself indignant, but his voice was shaking. Svetlana took the phenazepam bottle from her bag, found in her mother-in-law's room. "Is that yours?" he asked cold. Thais realized he was trapped. Tried to attack. "You set me a trap. Put this camera, spied on me. What a snake you are, Roman. Don't you see she wants to separate us?" But the son stared at her as if he first saw her, with a mixture of disgust and disappointment. "Where is the money?" demanded. "What money? I didn't get anything." Romano climbed his mother's room, rolled everything and found the box with stolen notes. He said, it was exactly 5,000 hriaris. When he went down, Thais was in the kitchen, whimpering. "Roman, I'm your mother," he begged. "I carried you on my belly, I created you, put you up, and now do you believe this slut more than me?" But Roman was irreducible. "Arrange your things and disappear from my life. You have 20 minutes, he ordered dry. "Consider it came out easy. We could have called the police." Thais understood that there were no more arguments. He climbed to pack, still hoping that his son would change his mind, go up, and say it was all a test. But Roman remained in the kitchen, reviewing the recording, with an expression that left no doubt, that was no longer the mother he knew. The 20 minutes flowed like sand between the fingers. Romana climbed the stairs with steps firm, his face a mask of determination. "Time is over," he announced, his voice as cold as the ceramic floor under his feet. Thais dragged a heavy marlau, his white fingers from squeezing the handle. The son did not even extend his hand to help. He just drove her to the bus stop in her own car, opened the door without a word and left as soon as she got out, leaving behind only the trail of dust and the echo of an engine that walked away forever. But that was just the first blow of a storm that was announced devastating. The 15,000 who stolen from her daughter-in-law evaporated with a frightening speed. The room rented in the pension of Zenaida, a hoarse-voice alcoholic and shaking hands, devoured half of what was left. Retirement of 1,200 badly gave rice, beans, and cheaper remedies. In a month, despair led her to dial the work number of Romano. The broken voice, the tears dripping without control, swore regret, pleaded with a second chance. "Son, I changed, I swear I never again." Roman heard in silence, as if he hears the rain hit the window without caring about the storm outside. When she finally silent, the answer was a blade. "Mom, you crossed a line of which there is no turn. Don't call anymore." Thais tried to wait at their door, but Roman had installed a camera intercom. The black and white images showed a woman with gray-haired hair, shrunk against the gate, her shaking hands squeezing the grid as if she could force the entrance with the will. The neighbors of the Kosas watched the scene with faulty looks, muttering with each other. Some even filmed with the cell phones. Poor Roman, poor Svetlana. No one approached to offer a glass of water or a word of comfort. Svetlana, however, was not content with silence. He turned his mother-in-law's betrayal into a gun. He told everyone, friends in common, co-workers, to the owner of the bakery where Thais bought bread like the sweet lady will drug her daughter-in-law to steal the vault. The cruel and accurate details spread like fire in dry straw. Ancients known now they looked at her when they saw her on the street. Even the marketer who, for years, spanned her name and let tomatoes to pay later, crossed her arms and shook her head. Sorry, you don't know ties, but after what you did, how am I going to trust? 6 months later, injured pride tried one last card: find a job. At age 68, with hands that no longer followed firm and a reputation on Krangles, the options were scarce. The caregiver of the elderly, nanny, cleaning lady was applied. But the recommendations that promised did not exist, and Roman was strictly refused to provide any reference. Worse, Svetlana, with almost military efficiency, discovered each attempt and called potential employers. Do you know that you are hiring a person who has already drugged someone to steal? What guarantee has you not to do the same with your father, your grandmother? Do you have a sense of risk? One by one, the phones stopped playing. When the situation was unsustainable, even the precarious roof of the pension collapsed. Zinaida, sunk in alcohol, raised the rent to 2,000 riaris and demanded a deposit that Ties did not have. With no alternatives, he sought social assistance. The answer was a form and a compassionate, but firm look. While your son is alive and in a position to help her, we cannot intervene. Unless he signs a repudiation document. Roman, of course, refused to put the pen on paper. She made her choices. That arms with the consequences. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, the couple's life flourished like a well-kept garden. They bought an apartment in the center, financed in installments that did not even feel in the budget. Svetlana was promoted. Roman opened his own construction company, surfing in the wave of the real estate boom. In 2 years, their son was born, a boy with clear eyes, just like his father. Ties knew through the mouths of others. He arranged courage to appear in the motherhood, his heart beating so hard that he seemed to jump over his throat. Romano went out to serve her in the hallway, a stone mask. I'm a grandmother now, she whispered, tears dripping shamelessly. Romano, please. Don't take me to that. Let me see my grandson, just once. He stared at her like she was a shadow of the past that insisted on not erasing. After what did you do? Drug my wife, steal our safety. How could I trust you near a child? Ties tried to hold his arm, but he backed away as if the touch burned. I regretted. Never again. Some things have no forgiveness, mother. You crossed a line. And turned his back, leaving it there, alone between the smell of antiseptic and the cry of the newborns. Desperate, Ties began to watch their house, hopeful to see her daughter-in-law walking with the baby. But Svetlana was always one step ahead. The first time he spotted her near the gate, he didn't hesitate, he called the police. The officer who answered was clear, almost rude. Mrs. Tukaiva, if she keeps chasing this family, let's register occurrence by invasion of property. And don't forget, we still have the evidence of those theft. The prescription deadline has not won. It was the last breath of a lost battle. 3 years passed like an endless nightmare. The family's jewelry, mother's pearl necklace, the father's gold clock, was sold by crumbs. The food boiled down to hard bread and instant noodles. The pressure rose, the heart began to fail. The drugs, when I could, were the cheapest, those who did more harm than well. Zinaida died of cirrhosis, and her nephew, a man of dubious eyes, inherited the apartment. He climbed the rent to 3,000, required a bond. Ties had neither. The street was the next destination. A shelter for homelessness accepted it, but the conditions were envious of a prison. 20 people piled into a damp room, rats running between the mattresses, fights for crumbs of food. Until then, her reputation pursued her. One of the residents, a cousin far from ancient neighbors, spread the story of the old woman who drug her daughter-in-law to steal. They began to hide their belongings as it approached. His few clothes are gone, the food he kept disappeared at night. The administration of the shelter shrugged. Here each by itself, feral. 6 months later, a heart attack knocked her down. 3 weeks in the ICU, tubes, soruses, a heart too tired to keep fighting. When he woke up, weak, he asked the nurse to call his son. Tell him, say your mother is here. Roman answered. He heard the name, paused, and then, with a calm that froze the nurse's blood, tell the lady that my son died 3 years ago. She buried him when she chose the poison and the lie. He hung up before the woman could react. Ties returned to the shelter like a ghost. I didn't speak, I didn't eat right. He spent his days lying down, looking at the cracked ceiling, as if he could find answers to everything he had lost. Meanwhile, Romano and Svetlana moved to a luxury apartment in the center. His business thrived. She now earned $20,000 a month as a deputy director. They traveled to Europe, bought designer clothes, planned a country house. From Ties, they didn't speak. When someone asked, Romano answered, dry, he died. Svetlana sometimes asked for curiosity, not for mercy. I learned, through acquaintances, that the mother-in-law lived in a sick shelter, forgotten. Smile to hear the news. Yeah. Who sows wind, said to her husband, as if she was closing the accounts of a cashew book. Roman, in rare moments of insomnia, felt something scratch inside. But he drowned his voice with work, whiskey, with the certainty that some wounds should not be forgiven. Ties lasted 2 more years in that purgatory. Diabetes blinded it partially, the kidneys failed, the legs swelled like trunks. He spent his days in the bed, feeding on what was left in the trays of others. In recent months, I have delirious. He called Romano, asked for forgiveness to Svetlana, murmured the name of the grandson he never knew. The other residents ignored their laments. Each carried their own demons. He died on a February night, when the cold bit his bones and the wind howled the cracks in the windows. And they nodded it in the morning, already cold, their eyes open as if they still sought a way out. The administration of the shelter located Roman. He answered the phone in the middle of a meeting, his face impassive. Heard the news, thanked a murmur, hung up. He turned to the negotiation table as if nothing had happened. That night, while the city slept, he served another dose of whiskey. He looked out the window, to the flashing lights, and for the first time in years, allowed a question to haunt him. Was it worth it? The number in the deceased document. They informed him of his mother's death and asked if he would take care of the funeral. Roman remained silent for long seconds, the receiver glued to the ear, as if the words needed to cross layers of ice before they are echoed. When he finally spoke, his voice was a dry cut. They bury at the expense of the state. I won't go. Tatiana Borisovna was buried in the municipal cemetery, in the sector reserved for the homeless. A small wooden cross, with a number in place of an identity. In the funeral, only 2 figures were present, a social worker of looking tired and a priest who murmured prayers by obligation. Romano learned of the details a week later. He went to the cemetery at dusk, when the light was already gone between the tombstone, and was there, immovable, like a statue sculpted by the remorse. What was your mind? No one would dare ask. He returned home with the longest shadow than the body, and the silence that accompanied him was so dense that Svetlana nor tried to break it. For her, justice had been fulfilled. A man capable of poisoning his wife for money did not deserve mourning or forgiveness. The years followed his course. Roman's family flourished, the children grew strong, the business prospered, and the table meals were punctuated by laughter and plans for the future. No one mentioned the grandmother that the grandchildren never knew. Only at rare moments, when the wine warmed his memory or when the minor of his children was nestled in his lap with the same naive confidence of your Roman, felt the ghost of a fingers that stroked his hair, a voice that sang lullays on distant nights. But he chased down those images with the same violence with which he had chased his own humanity years before. That man died the night he chose the poison, he repeated himself. And in a way, it was true. Tatiana Borisovna's story became legend in the city. Parents told her to her already adult children as a warm warning of fire. This is what happens when greed devours the soul and ambition feeds on the blood of others. Svetlana, now mother of 2, often reflected on it as she watched the little ones play in the garden. Teach them to choose honesty even when no one is looking, I thought. For her, the past was not just a lesson, it was a mirror. And if Tatiana's shadow still hovered over them, she just served to remember that some choices have no turning back, and that the price of betrayal is paid in loneliness coin, generation after generation.